what you need, what you need.
Sonic Rush!
So, Sonic Rush. Let's talk about it. Last year, I replayed Sonic Rush as a way to celebrate the 20th anniversary, and after beating the game, I just sat there in silence, contemplating, thinking. Man, I want to talk about this game. I gotta say, this game still holds up. Now, I'm not gonna be impervious to some of the criticisms this game has. The nostalgia lens masqueraded some of the flaws before I went into my replay, so parts that I may have enjoyed back then, not so much now. But regardless, I still had a blast playing through the game after so long and did so with a newfound perspective. This game was my favorite 2D Sonic game, and it still is my favorite 2D Sonic game. This game is the reason why I got into Sonic in the first place. So, let's roll the tape back. Back when I was in elementary school, I never knew how iconic Sonic was. Whenever the topic of video games came up with my friends, the only ones we would ever talk about were Mario and Pokemon. But then on one random day, I saw this kid on his DS playing a game I've never seen before. I asked him, "What is that?" He said, "Sonic Rush. Wanna play?" Sure. And then we started playing the PvP. Guy chose Sonic, leaving me with Blaze, but the joke's on him. I actually like Blaze.
Me like this kind thing.
Then he proceeded to destroy me. That L has been haunting me ever since. That was back when you didn't need to have a copy of a DS game to play with other people. Needless to say, I was hooked. It took a lot of convincing for me to get my hands on this game, and my god, was that purchase worth it. I played the hell out of this game. I love the aesthetic and the art style. All of it is so simple but so appealing to look at. The gameplay was something very different to anything I've ever played prior to that point. It was during a time I was playing the Marios, the Pokemons, the Mega Mans, and the Cookie Mamas. The tone was cool and hyperactive, perfectly complementing the new style of gameplay they introduced. I didn't know this was a new gameplay style at the time, so in my ignorance, thinking that all Sonic games were like this, I got Sonic Heroes, and it wasn't how I thought it was gonna be. Still, I enjoyed Sonic Heroes. I thought it was a fun game too. Sonic Rush is a game that completely broke the status quo and redefined what a Sonic game could be. Prior to Rush, the game's central idea had you focused on the platforming aspect, with vertical exploration and replayability playing a big role in their design. It's through this exploration that would give the player the knowledge of the level layouts and pathways, with the top path being the fastest and the one that rewards your memorization, platforming skill, and usage of speed. Simply put, you needed to learn the level to go fast. By learning the levels, you could find ways to maintain your speed. This philosophy was carried across the 2D Sonic games. The philosophy varied depending on what each game focused on, but generally, the core idea remained the same. It was important to learn the terrain so that you could use it along with the physics to optimize your runs. It was all tied to the mechanical skill and level knowledge of the player. You could use slopes or hills for momentum to reach those high areas, and you needed to be precise for those tight platforming segments. They were all hallmarks of a good 2D Sonic game. Sonic Rush incorporates a new mechanic that puts less emphasis on the physics-based gameplay it's known for. Physics? Not in this household. Momentum? You are the momentum now. Okay, I don't think it's fair to say that this game doesn't have physics-based movement, because it does. Speedrunners use this to great effect. It's an element you can try to take advantage of alongside the boost to traverse the levels a lot faster. But for someone that's just playing the game casually, like myself, they're not going to be thinking much on how to use the physics when they have a built-in speed button. Dimps asked themselves, what if we gave you, yes you, the player, instant access to speed, and they just ran with it. You go blasting at supersonic speeds with the press of a button. Oh, you want to go fast? Boom, here's your speed. Oh, you're just minding your own business? Boom, I don't care about your business. Oh, I have to deal with my taxes? Boom. Okay, I'll stop. Dimps managed to find a way to innovate on the 2D formula without losing the essence of what makes a Sonic game a Sonic game. Sonic Rush maintains those branching paths, but redefines the dynamic around the boost mechanic. It's more action-based than the traditional platforming the games were accustomed to. You have to use the boost and your other movement abilities at the right times to keep your flow. In this case, it's less about reacting and more about that memorization we're familiar with. It's more streamlined and less mechanically intensive than the games that came before. Why rely on normal physics when you can just boost your way through the level. Yet in some ways, there are certain scenarios where the boost can screw you over from taking that top path, or just screw you over in general. So in ways it can punish the player for their over-reliance of the boost. Not me boosting like a psychopath in Huge Crisis and getting crushed by a piston. There's a balance between the fast-paced segments and the slow parts, but systemically, it tries to keep things kinetic. You're always going to be doing an action whether on the ground, in the air, or on rails. And most of this contribution is thanks to the game's trick system, which is a mechanic that... Sonic, stop! Sonic! Stop! It's a mechanic you're required to engage with if you want to keep your tension gauge up and running. It's very easy to maintain your boost, so the game often throws obstacles or challenges that try to stop you from using it, and when things click, there's a natural sense of flow in most of the levels. It's euphoric when you've gotten skilled enough to where you can take the higher paths and the shortcuts consistently. Like all 2D Sonic games. That's not to say that the levels are without flaws, but we'll get to those in a bit. These levels were made to keep you playing over and over and over again. There aren't any collectibles or anything tangible that incentivizes you to go back. Well, there's the Chaos Emeralds, but it isn't like Sonic Advance 3 where you have to find all the Chow to get a key or anything like that by any means. Thank God. Everything is just simple. Considering that you essentially have to play the game twice, it was really important to design them in such a way. And the branching path structure surely helps in encouraging players to time attack them. Surprisingly, it hits that sweet spot in terms of the challenge it brings. The ranking system doesn't give out participation medals disguised as S ranks like most modern Sonic games do. I could sit down for a whole hour trying to figure out the layouts and get better, just so that I could get the S ranks, or just try to time attack and get a good time. I'm not going to pretend like I'm good at it, but the gameplay is fun for me, so anytime I get to play any level of Sonic Rush, I'm going to enjoy myself. Except Mirage Road, that one is diabolical. That brings me to my next point. There are sections that break the flow of your run, like the enemy rooms for example. These ones don't bother me as much because I do feel like their intent is to give the player a break from the constant fast-paced action. You're constantly on the move, so at times you just need to take a second to process what's going on. Could they have integrated that in a better way? Absolutely. They did it in Leaf Storm Zone when you're running on vines. It's a defining moment of the level's identity and it was a very seamless way to do it. And in Water Palace with the slides, in these cases, it doesn't waste a lot of your time before sending you back into the action, unlike a certain zone that has multiple flow breaks and a whole section where you're stationary doing pretty much nothing for a good amount of time. Yes, I'm looking at you, Mirage Road. No, I don't hate the zone. Yeah, no, I hate this zone. Really, it's the only zone I dislike. This zone just has a lot of moments that interrupt that flow state you're trying to achieve. Enemy rooms? Check. Spending long-ass times in scripted events? Check. And auto-scroller? Omega check. This level is just a slog to play. Out of all the levels, this one is my personal hellscape to S rank. Many Sonic fans likely know Dimps' history, but I will explain it to provide context for those unfamiliar. Like I said earlier, this game was made by Dimps. They are the team that developed the Sonic Advance games, and if you're unfamiliar with those games, then just know that they have a habit of placing obstacles like spikes and enemies in very unsuspecting places. But that's the appetizer, because their signature dish is bottomless pits. Rush isn't exempt from this either. All of the stages have bottomless pits to various degrees. I'd be ignorant not to bring up Altitude Limit Zone, a zone that is roughly 90% a bottomless pit. Dude, the first level starts you off falling. Like, if this isn't a tone setter, I don't know what is. But personally, I don't really get bothered by the bottomless pits of this game. If I fall into a pit in Sonic Advance, I'd probably be annoyed, I'd be frustrated. I'd probably say something along the lines of, I gotta go through this again. But with Rush, it's like, oh, alright, we go again. I think a lot of it has to do with the boost. I feel like having an ability that gets you right back into the action does mitigate some of the problem. It doesn't excuse the problem entirely, but it's not something that I'm gonna make a big fuzz about. I rarely get game overs in these games nowadays, but even with that, I don't find it as annoying as like getting a game over in Classic Sonic or the Sonic Advance games. Now I cannot wait to talk about the best part of the game, the bosses. Nah, I'm just kidding. They are actually the worst part of the game. Listen, I can forgive the bottomless pits. I can forgive the enemy rooms. Fuck, man, I can even forgive Mirage Road to a certain extent. But the bosses here are undoubtedly the weakest link of the whole experience. For a game that is all about trying to keep you active and moving, you don't really get to play an active role in these fights. They just drag out for so long. The majority of bosses play the exact same way. You can only attack them once per attack cycle, not to mention that every boss has that one attack that never gives you an opening and it just prolongs the battle longer than it needs to. If you're really unlucky, they may also cost you the S rank, even if you've played the fight perfectly. Because of the nature of the fights, they limit player expression. You're more encouraged to remain stationary and not engage much with the mechanics, which makes the fights boring as a result, at least to me. Back then, I didn't really have any problems with these fights, but now that I've gotten older, played more games, and have a better perception of time management, this is one of the elements that did not age well. The fights feel more like dimps trying to flex their capability of integrating 3D models to the DS. They don't really take full advantage of the 3D graphics to enhance the gameplay in a positive direction. It just looks like they prioritize the visual spectacle. Going through these fights for the first time, the experience might not be so bad. The animations are really well done, and seeing the amount of work they put into making these a spectacle on a handheld like the DS is impressive, but that luxury goes away upon replay, and you realize that you don't get to do much. I think the biggest mistake Dimps made that really made this issue painfully obvious to see was recycling the first boss fight.
Ladies and gentlemen of Dimps, feast your eyes. Allow me to introduce you to the brand new Nintendo hardware. Faster processing, 2 screens, and yes, even touch support. With this baby, we'll have no issues integrating those pesky 3D models.
That's cool, but how can we use that to make the fights fun?
Fun? You see this? Well, we can now do this, but in 3D.
Shouldn't we take advantage of this to find interesting ways for the fights?
Oh, but that's the best part. Don't you see? The fans will be too busy gawking at the 3D models to give a damn. Oh, what do the rest of you think?
But so—
You're fired.
However, not all of the boss fights are bad though. I think the boss fight in Night Carnival is actually really cool. Using the little robot and timing your jump to hit Eggman high up is very satisfying. If you're skilled enough, you can clear this fight in roughly under 35 seconds or so, or 25 seconds if you're playing on easy mode, which I should have done. The Sonic and Blaze boss fight I also think is nicely done, and it's pretty fun. From what I've seen, both these fights seem to generally be more well-liked among fans. Sonic and Blaze's movesets are tried and true to their character. You have Sonic doing his homing attacks and creating these crazy tornadoes in space, by the way, while Blaze also has the same moveset but with pillars of fire instead of tornadoes, which only makes me wish we could have seen more of her fire abilities. The final clash is the highlight for me, with both of them using the boost on a head-to-head battle trying to overpower the other. Listen, I love pressing buttons as much as the next fighting game player, but why is this a whole-ass workout routine for my fingers? That reminds me, I wish they could have incorporated the boost in these fights in some other way. They created this new core mechanic and it's not used at all in any of these fights. If they had found a way to incorporate the boost here, I think it could have made the fights a lot more interesting. Although to their credit, they would later do that in Sonic Colors DS, and Sonic Rush Adventure kind of does improve on what they established here without the boost, so they were very much aware of the issues. The final boss is a mixed bag for me. The fight itself is fun if you're playing as Blaze. I think it makes sense for Sonic to play the way that he does, but like, did they really have to shoot the most annoying robots in the universe? It's challenging trying to deflect the satellites back at Eggman. They have this erratic movement that makes pinning them down outright annoying. It doesn't help you have to line it up to hit the Egg Salamander's head, and if you take too long, they fire these lasers that can stun you. It wouldn't be so bad if the lasers didn't cover the whole screen. I genuinely don't know how I managed to get good at this portion of the fight as a kid. I really wish Sonic could turn into a ball to attack directly. Like, this is one of those instances where I would have been okay with the boss design they've been using prior to this moment. Like, give the head a small force field that disappears after a bit of time that allows you to attack directly, while also giving the option to deflect the projectiles and have them ignore the force field to land damage on Eggman. I think it could have given the player a bit more agency on how to handle the fight, but hey, those are just my thoughts though. Blaze has a much better time here. Unlike Sonic, she actually is able to attack directly. No deflects, no boost, no nothing. She charges a fireball, then BAM! She hits him with it. If you're at the right spot at the right time, you can pretty much breeze through this section without problems. Okay, now we can get on with the best part of the game for real this time. This game introduces a new character to the ever-growing colorful Sonic cast. And let me tell you, she definitely left her mark. she is the perfect counterpart to Sonic. Her design has this air of a graceful, badass princess that's cool with you, but won't hesitate to light your ass on fire if you mess with her. Living as a princess in her dimension, she bears the task of protecting the Soul Emeralds. Because of this, she's led a very isolated life. This led to her not relying on others, shouldering the responsibility of protecting the emeralds and her world all on her own, further exacerbated by her inability to control the power of the Soul Emeralds. The title is Sonic Rush, but I don't care. To me, she is the true main character. Sonic Rush? More like Blaze Rush, am I right? Or am I right? Sega, please lock in and make a Blaze game. Us Blaze fans are starving over here. But what about Sonic? Man, Sonic is just here for the ride. Blaze is the one that hogs the spotlight. It's the one character with a legitimate character arc, the one that goes through the hero's journey. I think it's poetic how throughout her journey, she basically dismisses the idea of having any sort of friends or help for any matter, but it's because of Sonic's friends like Cream, Amy, and Knuckles. Well, not so much with Knuckles, he kinda just gets rage baited by Blaze. That's why she's the GOAT! It's her interactions with them that she really starts to have her worldview challenged, leading up to finally considering Cream as a friend. Her first friend. It's nothing revolutionary, but you gotta understand, usually Sonic is the one that's directly involved throughout when it comes to helping other characters. It's not like he doesn't help Blaze, spoiler alert, he does, but over the course of her journey, it's Sonic's friends that give her the push she needed to even consider the idea of opening up to others. And I really appreciate how this game gave some of that spotlight to these characters. Sonic does meet Blaze before the 7th stage, but there's an underlying feeling of tension between the two parties, especially after Sonic confirms that there's a connection between Blaze and the space-time disruption that's going on in their world. Regardless, Sonic does try to extend a helping hand to Blaze, but she ultimately refuses and brushes him off, still trying to shoulder the responsibility of their world. I think it's worthy of noting that Blaze comments on the people of this dimension being so nonchalant about what's happening, but I like to think that after so many world-ending threats, they're all like, yeah, this is fine, or they just have that much faith in Sonic's ability to resolve the current conflict. It's then during the aftermath of her fight with Sonic that he finally convinces her to start opening up and trusting others, a development that would later be instrumental to the final battle with the Eggman, as she finally earns the ability to control the Soul Emeralds and transform into Burning Blaze. Her farewell with Sonic wrapping up her arc in a tight-knit bow, returning to her world with a newfound lesson. She's so cool. Gameplay-wise, she is slower than Sonic, but what she lacks in speed, she makes up with air mobility. Her hop jump is a cracked double jump that boosts her way up in the air, opening up routes that wouldn't be accessible to Sonic. I find it fascinating how she and Sonic play like 95% the same, but the small changes in their movesets can totally change the dynamic on how you approach a level. Out of the two characters, I say I prefer to play as Blaze. Just having the ability to double jump high up makes getting to certain areas easier, might even skip certain sections entirely if used right. I don't know much about time attacking or anything surrounding the speedruns of this game, but I wouldn't be surprised if a certain character is better to use in a specific stage. Like, I feel Blaze is better to use in stages like Altitude Limit due to its bigger emphasis on platforming, relative to Sonic, who feels better to use in stages that are more grounded. I'm not going to talk much about Sonic because, I mean, it's Sonic. He's just doing Sonic things. Like I said, the guy is just there for the ride, you know what I'm saying? They see Eggman up to no good, he entails her on the case. Oh, there's a tear in the space-time continuum? Sounds like a normal day for Sonic. There's a new Eggman out in the streets? Oh, there's a new Eggman? What a surprise! Just like how Sonic has a counterpart, our favorite Egghead also has one of his own. Only this one is more psychotic. Hold up a second. Hello? Huh. He's not his counterpart? He's Eggman's descendant? He can travel through both time and space? Wait a minute. Eggman fuck? There's really not much to say about Eggman Nega other than the second word sounding dangerously close to another word that I will not say or disclose. He's just very derivative of the Eggman that we know. They don't really do anything different with him, not that they need to because he really isn't the focus of the story. I do think his outfit looks cooler than normal Eggman though. He really rocking those darker colors. The special stages are actually good. I remember back then I didn't know how to get the Chaos Emeralds because my little small brain didn't make the connection that you had to boost in these things to enter the special stages. So I was always confused as to why I never obtained any of the gems while playing normally. I've never felt so stupid after finding out. Was I the only one like that? I used to hate these special stages. A lot of it stemmed from me just being bad at them. And that last one did not help at all. It only just added fuel to the fire. I didn't know what a real bad special stage looked like until I played Sonic Advance. My god. Who at Dimps looked at this and said it was a good idea? Have they ever heard of depth perception? Needless to say, the Rush special stages are a major step up from the advanced games. Alongside the unique gameplay, the game carries a very iconic element, one that anyone could argue is just as memorable as Blaze or the gameplay itself. And I would be a fool if I didn't talk about it.
Same clique that put Kennedy in power joined the March on Washington. It's just like when you got some coffee that's too black, which means it's too strong.
Let's do it! My enemies always fall before me.
We're no strangers to Sonic having banger soundtracks. Rush is not an exception to that rule by any means. This soundtrack is what completely shapes the game's unique identity. The chemical X of this game's entire being, and I'm not exaggerating. I don't know how to explain it in accurate detail. The soundtrack of Sonic Rush sounds like it wouldn't belong in a Sonic game, yet somehow fits like a glove. Does that make sense? The soundtrack is composed by the one and only Hideki Naganuma. You may know him from his work in the Jet Set radio games, or you may know him as that guy on Twitter, who is still active in social media but not as much nowadays, unfortunately. I know he's working on that soundtrack for the new Jet Set radio game, I just can't prove it. The music has this tough and crunchy sound to it, very upbeat, very high energy. Immediately from the title screen, it sets the tone. You already know this is going to be a very energetic, very fast-paced game. For instance, the moment you start at Water Palace, the music starts at a very fast tempo. It starts you off with an adrenaline-inducing track from out of nowhere, and it makes you want to run and just blast through this level without a care in the world. Ain't nothing like a funky beat, am I right? Had to sneak that one in there, I couldn't help myself. But the point that I'm making here is that it sets the atmosphere before the level even starts. I wish I could say more about the music because this soundtrack deserves to be talked about more, but unfortunately, I don't have a lot of knowledge in the music department. Well, guess it's a good thing I brought someone who does. Take it away, Caesar.
When my boy Delta asked me to work with him on this project, I was really excited. While I'm admittedly not the most enfranchised or knowledgeable Sonic fan, as soon as I played the first track from the Sonic Rush OST, I knew something was different. I associate Sonic with classic 16-bit chiptune glory, or even more so with the excellent rock music of Crush 40 and the like. What on earth was this frenetic, choppy, and downright funky music, and why did it work so well? For a little bit of brief context, traditionally, a composer writes a piece of music and then those pieces are recorded live or via virtual instruments. This is composition and creation of wholly new audio and was the norm for pretty much the entire history of recorded music. And then came the 70s. Things started to truly change as tape technology and audio synthesis advanced. With these changes, the new sound of popular music began to emerge, and by the 80s, music had become digital. This led to lots of things: the death of disco, the rise of MJ, and a level of audio manipulation that the engineers of old with their gigantic analog consoles could only ever dream of. Most importantly for our story, however, was the emergence of consumer-grade audio equipment, which allowed the everyman to try their hand at producing, leading to an entirely new style of production. The reason the music of Sonic Rush stands out so much from the rest of the franchise's catalog is because Naganuma utilizes something called sample-based production. Sample-based production, put simply, is the use of existing audio to create new transformative pieces of music. While sample usage is ubiquitous now, the true boom began in the early 90s thanks to the contributions of many black artists who laid the framework for what hip-hop would become. This is exactly why the tracks in this game feel so much like breakbeat-riddled crate hip-hop extravaganzas amped up to 11, because for all intents and purposes, that is really what they are. This approach produces a sound that is emblematic of the late 90s and early 2000s, and was pretty novel when it came to video games at the time. On any given track, Naganuma utilizes upwards of 24 sample sources ranging from obscure quartets and jazz instrumentals of decades past to some great underground hip-hop tracks of the time. He notably even samples the famous Message to the Grassroots Malcolm X speech on what's arguably the best track of the bunch, Wrapped in Black. One could legitimately spend hours analyzing every sample source he utilizes in this project, and to that end, I would like to mention the channel Tower Equip. They have a breakdown of pretty much every sample, their origin, and how Hideki used it. I think it's worth a watch after you finish this video. Another source of samples that I adore and make these even more a product of their time are the use of so many sample CDs. While nowadays, every producer and their freaking grandma can get on Splice or Reddit and find endless sample packs, back in the day they sold these little CDs called things like Rockin' Guitar Samples Volume 3 or fucking The Sounds of Whales and Dolphins that you had to export and chop and splice manually. Hideki stacks so many of these samples and chops and arranges them in some really cool and creative ways, achieving segments reminiscent of things from 12-bar blues to what I can only describe as Chow Garden carnival music. On top of all this, the game features alternate mixes for many of the tracks. These are Blazy mixes that are used when playing as her. While he could have just made slight changes and called it a day, which admittedly is what I thought he did before closer inspection, I think that these remixes are actually really cool and befitting of the characters. Starting with the Sonic tracks, these capture his nature perfectly. They are more frenetic, percussive, and feature more cluttered production. In contrast, the Blaze tracks feature some sections that are more sparse and highlight more melodic moments, even giving the bass a lot to do. In summation, I think the soundtrack alone really makes this a special entry in the Sonic franchise, and I actually see myself re-listening to Wrapped in Black and other tracks all the time. It's also very inspiring and makes me want to try my hand at a Naganuma-style track. And frankly, if you're interested in this type of music, I encourage you to give it a try as well. Thanks so much, Delta Lev, for having me on. Hope to be back soon.
Yo, thanks for being here, man. Give my boy Caesar a round of applause. Absolutely nailed it. To finalize this topic, I do agree with Caesar that this soundtrack is one of the most unique in the Sonic series, along with Sonic Frontiers. Naganuma's style was exactly what the game needed to go along with the new gameplay formula and add it to the game's unique charm. It's what really gives it that unique flavor. Naganuma was perfect for this role. They couldn't have found a better man for the job, even if they tried. It's a shame that he didn't return for Sonic Rush Adventure. I would have loved to see him make more music for the Sonic series. Rush signaled the start of what would be a new direction for the franchise. One could only guess how this framework could be translated in a 3D space at the time. Sonic Team, fresh off the disastrous release of Sonic 06, stepped up to the plate and took this as a challenge. They later delivered what I consider to be one of the best 3D boost games till this day with Sonic Unleashed. The boost would later associate itself with most modern 3D Sonic games. Most. but there hasn't been a Boost game centered in the 2D space since Sonic Generations for the 3DS. Nowadays, classic Sonic seems to be the major focus whenever 2D titles are involved, likely a product of Sonic Generations and Mania's success, and also to cater to fans that like the simple yet charming gameplay of the classic games. But I really miss this era of 2D games. It wasn't perfect by any means, but they brought a new formula to the platformer genre that made it stand out from its contemporaries. And it's not like I dislike classic Sonic. I played Sonic Mania and thought it was fantastic. I've yet to play Superstars, but from what I've heard from fans, it looks decent. I know there's always debates of which gameplay style is better, the boost formula or the classic momentum-based gameplay, and I think those kinds of debates are great whenever they don't take a toxic turn. I always preferred the boost formula over the adventure-style games. Don't kill me, please. Just because they are more exhilarating and bring a unique gameplay style from your standard platformer. The thrill of going fast, testing my knowledge of the level's obstacles, and making those split-second decisions is what really appeals to me, and it really feels like you're truly playing as a lore-accurate Sonic. Immersion. It's a shame that we at least haven't gotten a remaster or a modern port of these games because there isn't a legitimate way to buy them anymore. Listen, I get it, it's a DS game. There's a lot they would have to accommodate and change for Rush to even be implemented in modern hardware. But after seeing franchises like Castlevania and Mega Man getting these DS games reworked and re-released, I really would have loved to see Sega giving it a try to bring these games for the new generation of Sonic fans and also for the sake of game preservation. At least the fans have taken it upon themselves to remake this game with Sonic Rush Rerun, which is awesome to see. And with all that said, I'll end it with this. Sega! Release Sonic Rush and Sonic Rush Adventure to modern hardware, and my life is yours! If not, then please make a 3D Blaze game, and my life is yours! Yo, what's poppin'? Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If I sound a little different, it's because I got a new microphone whilst I was making this video, so I hope this microphone sounds a little better. I hope. This video took a lot longer to make than it should have. I initially wanted this video to be like a 15-minute video, but then I started writing, then I kept writing, then I started editing, and then I kept editing, and then I had to go back to rewrite some things from the draft, and I realized that I have a lot of things to say about this game. But enough of my ramblings. I want to give a shout out to my homeboy, my good friend Caesar, who came through for me for the music section of the video, because the soundtrack really is something special, man. And I don't think me talking about it would have done it justice. So I had Caesar come in since he has more knowledge of the subject than I do, you know, do his stuff. I let him rock. So please show my guy some love in the comments, and if you guys want to see him again for another video, let me know in the comments. Next month, the Star Force Legacy Collection drops, so very likely that the next video is going to be Star Force related. So Mega Man fans, keep an eye out for that. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like, please. It helps out a lot. If you guys want to see more content, subscribe. Or if you guys want to leave your thoughts about the video or about Sonic Rush, how do you guys feel about Sonic Rush? Leave it in the comments below. But with that said, I'll leave you guys. See y'all on the next one. Peace out, drink lots of water.